seen the advertisements and television station and whatnot. And the problem is that a lot of times the patient usually dies still within 3 years. Low-dose radiation, which is their method that they use, helps to prevent and avoid side effects, collateral damage, with 85% of patients having their immune system start attacking the cancer cells that the radiation treatment was not targeted at. Twice daily low dosage radiation allows normal cells to heal, while once a day high dosage radiation, the usual method that's used, results in T-cell exhaustion. He's treated over 108 patients in 107 geographical areas, with 80% are still alive after 3 years, twice as many as immunotherapy. And their cancer is almost non-existent. So now, obviously, with every speaker, we have a question period. And so one of the questions was, is the radiation therapy just 2 or 3 minutes twice a day? Answer, yes, and that it is done for about 5 to 6 weeks usually. If you had melanoma removed, how do you know if it's metastatic? His answer was, do a PET scan, a PET CT scan to determine this. Does the therapy act as a vaccine? Answer, yes. In essence, it does, with 5 decades of research showing the effect. And is a low-carb, high-fat diet recommended? Answer, no for prostate or breast cancer, but yes for brain cancer. And that was basically the main points of the February meeting. And let me quickly cover the March meeting. In that meeting, again, we deferred most everything associated with most of our meetings at that time, and then we went into an information discussion. Mr. Kenny Blocker, the district manager, introduced Kevin Plelsner of PFM Financial, who presented the preliminary analysis for the Village's Public Safety Department Dependent District and a special assessment for fire rescue services. The main points of the briefing were methodology, allocate assessments to each parcel and land use based on relative benefit received via access to and utilization of fire rescue services, and it resulted in a 2-tier allocation system. First one being readiness and availability, which is overhead, capital, administrative, which is 70% by parcel, and the second one being demand for service, operational costs, which is 30% by equivalent residential unit, or ERU as they call it. And it's according to weighted land use by incident reports. So where a lot of the incidents are happening at, 77% usually happen at residential. Asked about the impact fee, they said that it does not have statutory authority. The VPSDDD does not have statutory authority to issue the impact fee. Data suggests impact fee would not relieve majority of capital needs. New development, 3,350 residential units annually, will pay for the fair share of capital needs. Rate setting, adopt a 5-year average to smooth out increases. Rate examples that they had, single-family home would be about $332.26. Commercial property, about 10,000 square feet, would be $1,017. A nursing home would be $4,448. Shows where, obviously, the demand aspect of that. Rate comparison, single-family home, around $250,000 house, would currently be about $452, and it would be $341 or so under the proposal. Lofts of Brownwood, which is $36,356, currently would be $23,189. Approval of the PFM financial assessment report, methodology, and property exemptions was at the April board meeting. I was out of town, so I'm not sure what the results of that meeting were. June will be a public hearing. September will be final. In November, the non-ad valorem fire assessment will be included on the tax bill. Questions asked. Who made the VPSD area map, and does the data account for commercial versus fire residential needs? Mr. Blocker said the map is one that is used in previous independent fire district proposal, and Chief Twist said that they use hook and ladder trucks on residential units at times also, and that hazmat was properly considered. Why are residential units priced the same given different size homes that are taxed based on square footage? Mr. Blocker said a special assessment, what this is based on utility and value, not like a property tax where you can base the amount on the square footage. Then we did have our speaker at that point in time. That was Ms. Cheryl Chestnut, the Chief Clinical Officer at the Villages Regional Health Center. She provided a spring 2024 hospital operation update. First one, their main points was improve our leadership, team, and quality. Registered nurse turnover is down 47%. Hiring of RNs and techs is up 28%, and 85% respectively. Traveling nurses is down to 0. At one point, it was over 100. Vacancy rate is down 9.8%. The national average is 12.6. They want to expand the footprint, provide more bed capacity. Brownwood facility is now at 60 to 70 beds. Provide higher walk-in volume. Brownwood is up 12%. Provide more freestanding ERs. They have a 12-bed urgent care facility near Claremont in the fall of 2024. They've put a mobile stroke unit that's about to go into play. And they're connecting with the community via various methods. Then growing provider network. The primary focus, or current focus right now, is on primary care, surgical oncology, critical care. They now have an on-site provider 24/7 and cardiology. Their future focus would be on digestive, neurological, primary care, Uro-GYN, spine, orthopedics, and cardiovascular. Some of their highlights: from the ER entry to assignment to a bed, 1.7 hours, was 14 hours in the fourth quarter of 2022. Reduced length of stay by 0.6 days per patient, which frees up an average of about 25 beds. And the rate of patients seeing a leader each day, RN or doctor in that, is at 90%. Question asked was, why does it take 6 to 7 hours to check out? Probably you have more than one doctor involved and then a discharge doctor to sign off on the paperwork. This is an area Ms. Chestnut said they will continue to work on. And that was basically it from that meeting.
Thanks, Rev. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from those two meetings? Gilbert, thank you. Second? All in favor? All opposed? Thank you. Our treasurer's not here tonight, so we'll skip his report. Ken, you want to say anything? Our membership chairman is on his way up.
Good evening. We want to thank all those that are taking advantage of our shredding event and join the POA in order to participate in that event. For any of you that are existing members and would like to buy a discount card, I have them in the back. They're $5 each. 2 uses of this card, you'll get your money back, and that also helps for us to provide the bulletin to every household and help defer the cost on shredding events and any of the other meetings that we may have. So we appreciate your support and continue to ask you to tell your neighbors what benefits you get from the POA. Thank you.
Thanks, thanks, Ken. And just as a side note, in the last 30 days, we've gotten 112 new members. So thank you for the new members. We're redoing our database, and we're about at 17,000 members, a little bit north of that. So my goal is to get to 20,000 while I'm still around. So come on, guys, help me. Bring your neighbors so we get some new members. Something I started to do, I don't know, about a year ago, is introduce anybody that's here that might be a government official working for you to make this place better. So Jim Vaccaro was here, but I think he left. He serves on the AAC. Rab Benson, who is our secretary, is also on the AAC. Mark Hayes is here, who's a District 4 supervisor. Gary Cato's here, who's a District 5 supervisor. And I'm the chairman of District 4 Board of Supervisors. That's all we have. Sometimes we have more. Oh, and Dan Warren, who serves on the most important board we have at NSCOT, because they control our water and trash, and we don't need those prices going up like everything else. I'm sorry, Dan. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Nick Emmons, who's also on NSCOT. So, my fault. I apologize, Nick. I make lots of mistakes. At the back table, we have our friends from Seniors versus Crime, Realty Execs, Suncool. Call Suncool if your air conditioner goes. We're going into the hot season. We have our friends from Dr. Curtis's office who did a presentation for us. I believe it was in January, and they are doing some Alzheimer's studies, and it's really kind of important information. So if you'd like to volunteer and help them, please call them. And we also have our friends from Charter Research who are also doing a bunch of studies, and the POA is going to be partnering with them to do some more things to make this community healthier and better. So take care of these people because they're going to take care of us. As Ken said, our shredding event is Saturday. Tickets are all gone, so you'll have to wait till next year. If you've got a ticket, please, please, please come in your half-hour time slot so the Sheriff's Department doesn't get all over our case. And you're able to come in your golf cart if you want because it's golf cart accessible. So those are all important things. By the way, this is the 6th year in a row we have done this for the residents, for our members, and it's about a $5,000 deal to rent the trucks to get this stuff shredded. But it's well worth it because we don't want anybody stealing your important information. How many of you know what this is? How many have one of these? Vial of Life. Great, but not enough. My goal is to see everybody in the villages have one. So this is a Vial of Life. It's done by the Sumter County Sheriff's Department. What you do is you take this form. There's 2 sheets here. Second sheet's a medical sheet. You put your name and address and all your medicines and everything. Fold it up and put it in that. There's supposed to be 2 green stickers on the front of here, but I grabbed one that didn't have 2 stickers. You take one of the stickers and put it on your front door. You put the other sticker on the front door of your refrigerator. You put this on one of the shelves in your refrigerator, preferably in the door. And believe me when I tell you, when the EMTs get there, you're not going to have to say a word. When they see that green sticker, they're going to know to go to the refrigerator. They're going to get this. You're going to save precious, precious seconds. So I've had experience with it, so I know it works. When my wife had a heart attack, it worked really good. So please, 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 we got lots of them back there, and the sheriff will give me a lot more if I want them. I did my plug, Sergeant. How many get e-notifications? Guys, we're going into hurricane season and not too long. Believe me when I tell you, if you don't get e-notification from district, you're making a mistake if we have a storm. You will get so many notifications that you'll know exactly what's happening at all times. You can go online at districtgov.org and you can sign up for it. You can pick the things you want to be notified of. There's a whole long list. You don't have to take them all. Just take the ones that concern you. But it's really important when we have a storm, more so than anything else. Okay, now it's time for our cash raffle. Who's got the money? Donna's got the money. Okay, we give away 3 $30 prizes. Last 4 numbers of the first one is 3932. 3932. If nobody has it, it goes to the president. Gary. Thank you, Gary. 3942. I did not pick these numbers, just so you know. 3942. Oh, Darlene. Okay. $3843. Mark. Okay. SOS. Okay. That's another thing we support. By the way, Gary will be at the paper shredding, taking donations for SOS, which is Support Our Soldiers, which tries to help the vets that are living in the Ocala National Forest. In our lifetime, we have vets that have to live in a forest. Absolutely uncalled for and disgusting. So we have let him do this for the last couple of years to help raise money because COVID really hurt his organization, and we're trying to help him. So just a little side note. Okay, now it's time for open forum. You can ask us any question you want. If I can't answer it or we don't have an answer, we will get one for you. Oh, the chirp whistles, in case Really important if you're out walking at night, walking your dog, you fall. There's a whistle on there if you blow it. Believe me when I tell you, people will hear it. They'll come and save you. We have a whole bunch of them in the back. Chief Wolf of Community Watch said I have to get rid of these, so please take some. Any questions? Wow. Gonna let me off easy tonight, huh? Nobody? Okay. Let me just tell you who our speakers will be for. In May, our speaker is going to be Kevin McDonald, and he's going to be talking about something that should interest every single person in this room, and that's insurance, because insurance rates are going through the roof. In June, we have our lightning presentation by Lynn Hathaway, and we will be giving away a lightning system for one lucky resident who buys a ticket to our cash raffle. And at the end of the evening, we put all the tickets back in the bucket and we pull one and somebody gets it. This is like the 5th year we've done this. Somebody always wins it, and you get a nice lightning system for your house, especially since we're going into lightning season. In July, and we have 2 meetings in July, one here and one at Everglades, and we're going to have our candidate night for people that are running for Sumter County Commission, for the Sheriff's Department, and any supervisors or ends got any of the village district boards. I will tell you that so far there are only 3 contested seats for district supervisors. So more to come on that. And I thought there was another page here. Okay, that's all. That's far enough. Now, we have speakers lined up, though, for the rest of the year. I think December's the only one that's not filled yet, and it will be. So our speaker tonight is Eric Lasso from Edelman Financial Services. And let's give him your attention. And he's probably going to tell us all how we can make lots of money in retirement. Thank you. Yeah. Eric, it's all yours.
Can you guys hear me okay with that? No, I guess not. Okay. If you all need the presentation that I'm doing, we do have some copies of it in the back there, so if you don't already have one and you want to follow along, they're back there. Okay. It's not going to hold. The thing is I gotta switch the... Can you guys hear me okay? Is that a little bit better? The lights. It's not a... Okay, sorry about that. So welcome everybody. My name is Eric Lasso. I'm a certified financial planner with Edelman Financial Engines out of Orlando. Unfortunately, my colleague Clarence could not make it tonight. He was supposed to be here. He had some travel difficulties. But I am joined by my client service associate, Kendra. She's also here tonight. And like I mentioned, we do have a copy of the presentation in the back there. We also have some books from our founder who wrote them. So if you do want a copy of the books, you can feel free to take one, okay? Today, we're basically going to talk about 11 questions that you need to ask your financial planner. And we're going to talk about this, and then at the end, we're going to do some questions. So if you have any questions, please save those for the end. But before I get started, I actually wanted to share a brief story. And this is a story of a lady who came to me about 10 years ago. She had recently been widowed. Her husband was the one who primarily handled the finances. And he did most of it himself, but he also had some help from a local financial advisor at their local bank. And when that advisor found out that the husband had died, he saw that as an opportunity. And what he did is he actually sold all their investments and replaced them with a bunch of high commission products, such as annuities and structured CDs. Well, she came to me and she knew something was wrong. She just looked at her statements every month, she saw what was going on, and she just had a really bad feeling about things. Well, when I looked at her accounts, I realized the same thing. It was a big problem. And it took us a good year to kind of unwind out of those investments and to kind of really, she had to pay a lot of fees to kind of get out of some of those. And it was really unfortunate that happened to her. Now, she did submit a complaint, and that advisor and his manager were both actually laid off. They're still in the industry, though, but they no longer work for that bank. But the really sad part about that was that it happened, but also that she spent the last few years of her life dealing with all this when she should have been enjoying her life. And so that's why, to me, this kind of thing is so important, because that situation happened only because she didn't pick the right advisor. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today. Just to give you a little quick background on Edelman, we were started by a guy named Rick Edelman. So if you see the books back there, his face is on the cover of those books. We're one of the largest registered investment advisors in the country. We have over 1 million clients all around the country. We have 145 offices around the country, and we have over 100 of the top 500 Fortune 500 companies that work with us, and we manage their 401ks. So the first question is, what do you do to find a financial advisor? Okay? So one, you want to shop around. You want to make sure you interview different people. You interview different firms. You want to find the firm and the person that you're going to like and that you're going to want to work with. You want to seek referrals. This is probably one of the best ways. This could be from neighbors, could be from friends, from colleagues. If they say good things about their advisor, you may want to ask them for their contact information. But you want to be careful who you ask. If someone is just talking about the performance strictly about their advisor, that may not be the best person for you. And you want to check them out. There's a lot of different ways you can check out information about your advisor. You can Google search them. That's a pretty easy way. There's a thing called Broker Check, which you can check them out that way. You can also check the SEC's website to see if there's been any complaints or things like that. So a lot of that information is public. You also want to visit the company's website. How does the company position themselves? What things does the company say about themselves? Those are all very important. You want to see them in action. I would suggest that you actually meet with them in person. Again, see what they're like, get to know them, get to know just their personality. I always say this is like a financial marriage. So you want to make sure it's somebody that you would enjoy talking to, that you would enjoy being around. And then lastly, you want to interview them. So that's what these next 11 questions are, basically those interview questions that you can ask. Okay? So the first question, are you a fiduciary? This is probably the most popular question I get as a financial advisor, and rightfully so. It's very, very important. So let's sort of define what is a fiduciary. A fiduciary, just by definition, is someone who will put your interest in front of their own. Okay? But there's actually a lot more to it than that. And I think you want to think about this in a couple ways. You know, when you seek financial advice, there's lots of different places where you can seek it from. You can seek it from a brokerage firm, from a bank, from an insurance company. You can ask your neighbor down the street for financial advice. But the big difference is that none of those groups are fiduciaries. They don't have to put your interests first. What you want to find is what's called a registered investment advisor. That's a firm who is obligated to put your interests first. So that's step one. Now, there is a little bit of a trick to that, and that's what I call the dual hat problem. And what that means is that someone could be acting as a fiduciary some of the time, but then some of the time they're acting as a broker. And this is very, very hard for the average consumer to be aware of. But I remember when I was first in the industry, this is how we got trained. I would say, I'm now talking to you as a representative of the brokerage service, and I'd put on my broker hat. And then over here, I'd be talking to you as a representative of the advisory services. Obviously, no one in real life says that or does that, but that actually is what happens out there. And so you have to be very, very careful about that, because what you're not going to know is when they're acting in that advisory capacity. So you want to find someone who's going to be a fiduciary 100% of the time. Okay, and that's a question you can actually ask them. Are you a fiduciary 100% of the time? All right. A couple other things you can do. You can also seek out someone who is a certified financial planner. I'm a certified financial planner. That is someone who also has to act in a fiduciary capacity. As well, they have other requirements on top of that. For example, they have an ethics requirement, meaning they can't be advising you what to do with your money, and then behind the scenes they're declaring bankruptcy or something like that. They also have continuing education requirements, so it means they need to make sure they stay on top of tax law changes in investment philosophies, that sort of thing. So that's kind of one way to figure that out. Question number 2. What are the total costs I will pay to work with you? So pay attention to this question. This is not what is your fee. That's a very different question. And the reason that's so important, and I'll give you an example. Somebody may say, hey, our fee to help you or to manage your money is 1%. But what you may not see is that the investments that they offer you all have an underlying fee called an expense ratio. That fee can be anywhere from 0.1% to maybe even up to 1%. Someone else may charge you a fee to manage your money and say they charge you 1.5%, which sounds like it's more. But if you dive into it and you look at what the underlying fees are, if the advisor is charging you 1%, but then they're also charging you 1% for the investments that they recommend to you, they're actually charging you a total of 2%. Another advisor may charge you 1.5%, but the investments that they offer you only charge 0.1%. So your actual total all-in cost is only 1.6%. That's actually less expensive to you, even though it doesn't sound like it, because one person said they charge 1% and one person said they charge 1.5%. So you have to look at the all-in cost of investing. That's a real important one. Further, you have to look at what are you getting for the fee that you pay. You could go to like a robo-advisor. It's going to be probably the lowest fee out there. But you may not get a lot of help. You may not get a lot of services. You may call there and get a different person every time and have to explain yourself each time. Other places may charge a little bit more, but you're going to get additional services. Maybe you need help with your estate plan. Maybe you need help with your insurance. Maybe you need help with your tax planning. Those are all additional services, and if you need those things, you're probably going to have to pay a little bit more for them. Okay, so like with anything, if you're getting a good value for what you're paying, that's what you should look for. One other thing to be really careful about, I don't know if anyone here has heard this, but anyone who says they don't charge any fees, be very careful about that. That's a red flag. We all know every business has to make money or else they're going to be out of business. So when someone says they don't charge any fees, I would be very careful about that, because you're probably paying a pretty high fee when they say that. Okay? Question number 3. If I follow your recommendations, what is in it for you? Most advisors want to build up a good client base. They want to keep those clients for a long time. They want to manage a good portion of your money. So that's not unusual. But what you have to think about is what's influencing their recommendations. And I'll give you a couple examples. Sometimes there's third parties who will pay to get on the platform of that investment company. And so that's the only product that you'll see. Typically you see that happen with annuities. Another thing that may happen is you may have a product vendor, who will take everyone out to a nice steak dinner. And then guess what happens the next day? What product is everyone trying to sell? Back in the day, there even used to be contests where if you sold a certain amount of a product, you won a cash prize, or maybe you won an exotic vacation or something like that. That doesn't happen too much these days, but that sometimes are things you have to be aware of, what's behind the recommendation that they're giving to you. And I think one thing you can think about, another way to kind of filter this out is, does the advisor you're working with, are they a chef who eats their own cooking? Meaning, do they invest their own money, their own retirement accounts, that sort of things, the way that they're recommending you to invest your money? It doesn't need to be exactly the same, but it should be pretty similar, because that's a sign that they actually believe in that investment. If you have an advisor who is investing totally different than what they're recommending to you, that's probably a sign that they don't think it's that good. Question number 4, sorry. How many years have you been serving as a financial planner? Now, this is kind of a tough question because there's actually a lot of turnover in the financial services industry. This is a very hard business. It's a very hard job. Out of the 12 people that started when I did as a financial advisor, there's only 2 of us left that are even still in the industry. So there's, again, a lot of turnover. So you want to find someone who has the right mix of experience. You want to find someone who's maybe not fresh out of college, but also they're not going to be retiring before you do. So you want to make sure that they have that experience, but also they have experience through various market cycles. Have they been through a down market like what we saw in 2008 or even in 2020 when the COVID pandemic came out? You want to know that they've been through some of those highs and lows and it's not their first time in that rodeo. A couple other things about that too. A financial planner is also not an investment manager. Sometimes there are people who will just be investment managers. They'll just want to manage the money and they'll try to pick you the best investments. They will do the best, but they're not going to do any financial planning. As a financial planner, what we do is we look at what your goals are, what you're trying to accomplish, and then we pick the investments from there. So it's not the other way around. So you really want to try to make sure it's someone who's actually doing the financial planning first. Question 5. If something happens to you, what happens to me? So let's talk about that. So if your financial planner leaves their firm, okay, most financial planners have what's called a non-solicitation agreement. It means if you leave the firm, you're not allowed to reach out to your clients. The clients can call you, but you can't call them. Typically, that's about a year to a year and a half, that term. All right. So if your financial planner leaves and you want to work with them, you should really try hard to reach out to them. Maybe call them, email them, reach out to them through LinkedIn or some other method. They'll want you to reach out probably. But the other thing that can happen is, what if your financial planner is sick? What if your financial planner passes away? We actually had this unfortunately happen at my firm. We had a financial planner who died of a heart attack about 6 months ago up in South Carolina. Very unfortunate. Had 2 young kids. So what you want to make sure is that your financial planner has a backup, someone that you can go to in case something happens to them. What if it's just simply they're on vacation? Is your money still being managed? You want to make sure that there's a team behind them who is actually managing the money on a day in and day out basis. It's not a job that only one person can do. And if your financial planner has a backup, you want to make sure that they will follow the same methodology that your financial planner used. And a lot of firms, the person sitting next to your financial planner in the office next to them would do things completely different. And you're going to have to almost start from scratch. So that's one thing to sort of pay attention to and make sure you're aware of. Question number 6, why did you become a financial planner? I do think financial planning is a helping profession, almost like a teacher is, or maybe like a nurse. Ultimately, you're trying to help people through, whether it's retirement or just with their finances. Maybe it's helping them get out of debt, those kinds of things. And so you want to find someone who has that kind of personality, a helping type of personality. One way that's, again, a very easy way to ask that or to find out if they are is ask them if they do any pro bono work. Pro bono work means you do it for free. And that's something that we've had clients come to our firm who maybe had a lot of credit card debt and they needed help getting out of debt. They didn't really have any assets that we could help them with, but we gave them a plan to get out of the debt. And there's a very famous story where we had a teacher actually call us about 20 years ago who was in a lot of debt. She had just gotten divorced. The financial planner up in our headquarters in Fairfax gave her some ideas of how to get out of the debt and pointed her in the right direction. Well, about 20 years later, she comes back and she says, hey, I'm about to retire and now I have $1 million in my 403B at the school board, and you guys were the only ones that ever took my call and helped me. And so that's the kind of person or personality you really want to find in a financial planner, someone who's a helper like that. Another question, number 7, what are your career aspirations? Again, kind of going back to a little bit of the job as a financial planner, how that works. Most folks to enter the industry get hired right out of college. That's how I got hired. I used to work in a call center, basically, and I worked on a trading desk. So this is late 1999, so before the internet really took off. People would call, and they'd say, I want to buy 100 shares of this stock, and then I would type it into the computer, and that's how we would do that trade. Well, that job is pretty much gone. That job doesn't exist. The internet took that job away. But that's kind of an entry-level position because, you know, when you're 22 or 23 years old, no one who's 50 or 60 years old is going to trust you to manage their life savings. That's just not going to happen. So you need to find a way for that person to get some experience. Typically, it's going to take 7, 8, maybe even 10 years to get that kind of experience. But after that, you want to find out, is that person going to stick around? Most clients want to have a financial planner that sticks around for the long term. So what that means is you don't want somebody who's going to maybe try to get promoted into management, right? Usually a lot of financial planning managers are former financial planners and they just got tired of the job. So you want to find someone who's trying to build up their client base in your local community and they want to be there for the long term. That's going to benefit you because you'll have a solid presence for the long term with that type of person. Not someone who's trying to just move up the ladder and get promoted and that sort of thing. Number 8, what kind of clients do you work with? So this is actually one of those questions that's probably better to ask before you tell them too much about your situation, right? But there's different firms out there that have different specialties. I know our firm, we pretty much work with people who are about to retire or already in retirement. And so you want to make sure that the firm has experience with that because if you're going through that for the first time, and probably the only time, you want to make sure there's a firm or the person you're working with has helped other people with that same thing, okay? And so you want to make sure they actually have experience doing what you're looking for them to do. Question number 9, 10, and 11. We're going to kind of tackle those together because they're all very similar. So question number 9 was, what is your investment strategy? Question number 10 was, what changes did you make during 2008 financial crisis? And question 11 is, what changes did you make during the pandemic of 2020, about 4 years ago? So let's talk about investment strategy first, okay? Everybody's investment strategy can be boiled down into one of two camps, what we call active management and what we call passive management, okay? Active management is when somebody thinks through their research and through their analysis or just their gut feeling, they think they can pick out the investments that are going to go up, so therefore they're going to buy those and then avoid the ones they think are going to go down. The other side, passive management, says number 1, we don't think active is possible. We don't think anybody could always be right. We don't think anyone has a crystal ball. So what we're going to do is we're going to buy all the investments that are out there using things like index funds or ETFs. Okay? It's almost like, to me, it's almost like picking a religion or a political party. You have to agree with the tenets of that religion or you're not going to go to church on Sundays, or you have to agree with the platform of that political party or you're not going to vote for those candidates. So you have to find the investment philosophy that makes the most sense to you, or else you won't be happy. A couple other things about that. You really want to make sure they have an investment management team behind them. I kind of said it earlier, but managing the actual investments is very hard to do for one person. Again, what if that person's on vacation? What if that person's sick? You want to make sure there's a team behind them who's managing that money day in and day out. A couple other things about the investments. So in 2008, in the financial crisis, obviously there was a lot of ups and mostly downs that year. But when we were managing money for clients, we were making adjustments over time. We actually look at our clients' accounts every day to make adjustments if need be. But what you don't want to hear is somebody who said, hey, I'm going to pull all your money out of the markets when something's going down and then jump back in when I think things are good again. There's no way anybody's going to be able to predict that. The same thing happened in 2020, about 4 years ago during the pandemic. Obviously, again, that was another time period where the markets went down really fast. And that would have been a mistake if you would have pulled your money out of the markets and then tried to jump back in. You actually would have lost a lot of money. We, in fact, had people who did that. and they're no longer clients, and I actually feel bad for them because they're actually worse off today because they did that. And so, again, ultimately you want to find the strategy that's best off for you and that you like, because either way, no matter what philosophy you pick, if it's not one you agree with, you won't be happy. Okay? And of course, the last question, the one question I would not ask is, can I get references? Seems like an odd one. Why can't you give references? But if we give references, we would have to give our client's information to you, right? Our client's name, our client's phone number, information about their accounts, and we don't do that. We obviously have a very high level of privacy in our industry, and so we can't do that. So that's one question I would say not to ask. We do get that question a lot, but we usually can't honor it. So that's the bulk of the presentation. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that anyone may have. Oh. Yeah.
So my question is this.
Yes, ma'am.
If a person wants financial advice, period, what does one do?
So you mean no managing of the assets? Is that what you mean?
Absolutely, no management.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I've been doing this about 25 years. I've worked for different firms and different models. I would say that that's an emerging model, what we call an advice-only model, where you pay per the hour or per the project. But I honestly haven't seen that succeed from a business standpoint. I think that's a very difficult business that won't survive over time. So that's why most firms manage assets as well as provide the financial advice. Yeah. I mean, think about it this way. If you come to somebody and you say, hey, I'm going to pay you for an hour of your time to look at my finances, and that's it. It ends after that hour or 2 hours or however long it takes. As a business, I mean, this is a business, right? We have to make money at this or else we'd be out of business. What does that company have to do next? They have to find another person who's willing to pay for an hour of their time. And that model, I don't think for our industry, it does work in other industries like attorneys. That's how attorneys do it. For our industry, I don't think that ultimately works. I don't think anyone's been able to crack that nut, so to speak, to make that work as a profitable business, unfortunately.
Okay, question in the back here.
Eve, thank you very much for your presentation. I don't have a question, but just like to give a little extra information for the people here for protection.
Sure.
There's another organization that if you're looking to do business with a brokerage firm, financial advisor, anything like that, organization is called FINRA, F-I-N-R-A.
Mm-hmm.
You just need to Google it. From there, you just need to input the name of the financial advisor or the broker you're want to deal with, his firm, his address. From there, you'll get the information as to whether the person is a broker or financial advisor, and whether they're registered or not, whether there have been any what they call disclosures, which is a euphemism for complaints, and the years of experience. From there, if you want to continue it, there's a direct link to the SEC, where you go through and pull up more information. And yes, sir, you are a registered financial advisor. I looked it up.
Yes, so that's an interesting. So there are two organizations that do that. So FINRA is one of them, and the SEC is the other one. I was previously FINRA registered. I'm no longer FINRA registered. We're registered at the SEC level. Clients never asked me that, but that's how we're registered.
So what is your opinion on investing in utilities?
You know, it's interesting. So utilities as a sector, I don't think that as an overall sector, it's actually gotten smaller in terms of the overall economy. Other parts of the economy have actually grown a lot bigger, like technology or healthcare. The way we do it, we actually don't invest by sector, which that's considered a sector. We invest by the size of companies, whether they're large, medium, or small, and whether they're value or growth orientated. So sector investments typically, people will say a certain sector will do better in a certain time of the economy. You know, maybe the economy is going down or maybe it's going up, so certain sectors will do better. I really haven't seen the proof of that over the years. So we don't really put a lot of, we have money in utilities, but it's not a area we're putting extra clients' money in or anything like that. Yes, sir.
I've talked to neighbors, and it seems like annuities are recommended a lot. especially to seniors. Why is that, and what are the commission rates on those?
Yeah, I heard a client that lives here in the Villages tell me they could eat a steak dinner every night of the week for free if they wanted to. If they went to different annuity seminars. Annuities, here's the thing. Annuities pay a pretty big commission. Typically, it's going to be about 5 to 7% of whatever the dollar amount is. So if you have $100,000 and you put it in an annuity, it's going to pay that person between $5,000 to $7,000. They probably don't get all that. They probably get half of that. The firm gets the other half. The first question you have to ask yourself is, do I need an annuity? For the most part, when I've looked at it, the fees that you pay on annuities are going to be higher, and you'll actually never really benefit from that guarantee that the annuity provides. Meaning, for you to make money at the annuity game, if it's a variable annuity, the value of that annuity has to go all the way down to zero, and then the annuity company, the insurance company, will then pay you a payment out of their own pocket. That's how you win at the annuity game. Most clients, that value will never go to zero, so they'll never benefit from that. What happens is it gets sold out of fear. So people say this is guaranteed, and clients, when they experience loss, they say, I don't want that to ever happen again, so I go find the next shiny object, and that's why these various annuities have been out there. But for the most part, we don't really use annuities at my firm, and for the most part, I haven't seen many cases where it's a good idea for clients.
Question. The thing on Facebook, Elon Musk, he's going to guarantee you $500 a day or something like this. Is that just too good to be true type situation?
I hadn't really heard about that. You mean like a universal basic income? Is that what you're talking about?
I don't know. He just said, you got a certain amount of money to invest, and he can guarantee X number of dollars per day, so to speak.
Elon Musk said that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And with AI now,
Yeah, I follow him on Twitter. I have not seen that myself. I don't know about that. I haven't heard about that.
The other thing is, what about this, like insurance? There's an acronym out there for that. Getting involved in insurance companies. I wish I knew what it was.
Like annuities, you mean? Or the only two that I hear a lot about is annuities and viaticals, which is when you buy someone's life insurance who's maybe like about to pass away. But is that it? No.
Insurance policy.
I mean, there's various forms of insurance. It could be an investment. Sometimes that's called be your own bank. Is that what you mean? Where people borrow from their insurance policy to pay their expenses? No? Okay. If you think of the question, let me know later. I'm not sure what you mean.
Eric, I have a question. Thinking about these delicious steak dinner advertisements that I get in the mail at least once a week. We've seen a number of instances here in the Villages where people have gone to these things, and the one particular case that I'm thinking of, several people wrote out some pretty sizable checks to these so-called investment advisors, only to find out months or years later that investment advisor has spent all of the person's money. What are some of the steps that, when dealing with a financial advisor, what are some of the steps that a person can take to protect themselves from having that sort of thing happen to them?
Yeah. So some of the things we talked about in the presentation, you want to research that person, the firm as well. Here's a really good one that most people don't pay attention to. So I know you all probably remember Bernie Madoff and that scandal, okay? What you want to try to do, and this would solve the Bernie Madoff problem. This would have solved it if they would have done this. You want to make sure your money is with a third-party custodian. So let me explain what that means. So the firm that's managing the money is also not the firm who's holding the money. Bernie Madoff, the reason that scam worked is because they managed the money and they held the money. The company that holds the money, what they did with Madoff is they produced fake statements. So people thought they had money, and then Madoff would send them a fake statement in the mail. If you use a third-party custodian, for example, our firm will use Charles Schwab. Charles Schwab is independently verifying what we do. We do not produce the statements. Charles Schwab does. And that's the highest level of protection you can get, because then, again, you have an independent third party who's verifying what the firm is doing, so that kind of thing doesn't happen. There is a lot of, I would say, honestly, just sketchy stuff with the insurance companies and annuities. I've seen it myself in my career. I think you have to be very careful of those things. And, you know, I really would say stay away from it if at all possible. Again, when they get a room full of people for the steak dinner and there's 100 people in there, since the commissions are so high in the annuities, they only need a few people to say yes, and that's how they make their money. So maybe you think it's like a timeshare, right? I'm in Orlando. There's tons of timeshares there, and you know most people realize those aren't good investments, and they say, "Oh, I'm just going to go in there for the free tickets to Disney," and they get convinced to buy a timeshare. You know, they're really good at what they do. They're really good salespeople, so you have to be very careful of that.
Any other questions?
Oh, sure.
How about this ad on TV where you always go up, you never go down? It's some type of insurance and annuity?
Yeah, it's a type of annuity. Again, those things, the way they work is basically they eat the profits you would have made. So they'll typically limit how much you can make. Maybe it's 3% a year, 5% a year. But in the good years where the markets went up a lot, like last year, you don't get the bulk of that. And so there is a high cost to that. You may not see that, but there is a high opportunity cost to those. But again, you need to go back, and the first question is, do you need an annuity to do that for you? For the most part, if you have a solid financial plan, you do not need that.
Gary?
With ETFs and index funds,
Ma'am?
with the ETFs and index funds, since they're more, not up and down, not as dangerous, should there be much of a fee involved at all?
Well, the product itself is, think of it as just a vehicle that gets you exposure to the markets. ETFs are a very efficient vehicle to get you exposure to the markets. So the fee is not so much for the ETF, it's for putting it all together and for the ongoing management and the financial planning help. So you could certainly, like all of our products, you could go out and buy them yourself. They're not proprietary, they're not special that you can't find them yourself, but I think of it as like a recipe, like if you were baking a cake. You know, we have the same ingredients, but it's knowing how to put the ingredients together in the right proportions is what matters.
Anybody else? Okay. Eric, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Pleasure being here. Thank you.
I just want to make one last comment. I said in June we will be having our lightning presentation. We will. That will be the first meeting I will not be at in 9 years as being president. I have a granddaughter that's getting married the next day, and I will be at that wedding, and Mr. Gilbert will be running the meeting, and I'll be watching it live stream to make sure he does a good job. So we have donuts and coffee in the back for all of you. Thank you for coming, and have a great day and a great week.